Welcome to the Illuminerdi POV, our first debut episode. We're going to be talking about Black Widow from the MCU right here. But I am Joe from the Illuminerdi. I am also at Screen Rant. Alongside me is...
Giandra LaBeouf, major contributor for Black Girl Nerds and Rolling Out, and also on the Illuminerdi Sunday nights talking about pro wrestling. But today it's all about movies. And on my left...
Tatiana Hollander. I love how you said major contributor, because you're like, major contributions from me. I am a major contributor to the Illuminerdi. I do a lot of the editing of articles, as well as actually being a co-founder with Joe and Josh. And I also do interviews for Screen Rant, lots of television, and all the movies Joe does not want to do.
And you're on about 5 million podcasts, right, Tatiana?
I am on 5 million podcasts.
5 million, name them.
I'll name the Flash podcast because people actually listen to that one, and then I'll name Ladies with Gumption because I want people to listen to that
What is that one, though, for people that
Ladies with Gumption is also DC, which is, ironic because we're here talking about Marvel, but we just basically break down DC ladies, and then on the Patreon, we also will talk about Marvel ladies.
Salute to women.
Yeah, exactly. Women everywhere. All women. It's just women on the podcast.
Yes, women. Yes.
Just hate men. It's fine. Just kidding. We love men. We love men. We just don't talk to them.
At that moment.
Exactly. And now...
I am Josh, as Tatiana said. I am also one of the co-founders of the Illuminerdi, along with her and Joe and Brax and Brandon and several others.
So many.
That are behind the scenes. I mainly work behind the scenes, but you can also see me on Saturdays on our Power Rangers retro wrap up.
This is a little rivalry here for Jay because their wrestling show and the Power Rangers shows.
I do. That's right. I have heard of the rumblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventually I'll get into a Power Rangers costume and wrestle like Nate. Dressed up as
but the funny part, all that mess, we talk to you guys. We come over to your show.
I know, it's
right?
So funny. It's so funny.
I also do our Star Trek show. Starting probably a week ago, Rick and Morty are smoke along.
Yeah,
that's gonna be really fun. If you guys enjoy marijuana and Rick and Morty,
so that's like
two things.
Follow us.
It's like fan base. Coffee and cigarettes. Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Right? There you go.
Fun stuff. And if I ever get off my ass, stuff on Twitch.
There you go.
Yay.
So we're going to be deep diving into the MCU's Black Widow. Now, this has been a long time coming. We've been wanting a Black Widow movie for quite a while now. She debuted back in Iron Man 2, and we've seen her die in... spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
We've seen her die.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah,
you should know by now.
3?
3 years? Has
No, it's been like 2 years. Avengers Endgame was
Salute to
her
women.
demise. Right?
Salute to women.
But, this movie...
Sacrificing yourself for useless Hawkeye.
This movie has taken a while for us to get, and we've seen a lot of character development along the way. But what I find even more fascinating sometimes, more so than about the story that we see on the screen, is some of this pre-production stuff. And Tatiana has filled us in. She has a lot of information on the pre-production because, and this is a fun fact that I'm sure a lot of hardcore MCU fans know this, but maybe some mainstream fans don't, that Emily Blunt could have been our Black Widow, right?
Every day. I rue the day. No offense to Scarlett Johansson. She's wonderful. But I just imagine like the lifetime earnings that Emily Blunt has missed out on. I just wonder what she feels.
Salute to women. That's going to be my thing like every episode.
But yes. Okay. So long before the people cried out for a Black Widow movie, when Scarlett Johansson appeared in Iron Man 2, the studios were already planning one even before the MCU was really just in action, right? So Lionsgate was going to do a Black Widow movie in 2004, written and directed by David Hayter.
Wow.
Who did writing for Scorpion King, X2, Watchmen, and then just did nothing. Because things after that, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what happened. Black Widow didn't work out, and then you were like, I give up on life.
As one would.
One would. He actually said that he wanted to use the backdrop of the splintered Soviet Empire. It's going to be a lawless, insane asylum with 400 some odd nuclear missile silos. It was all about loose nukes, and it felt very timely and cool, which is interesting. I'm like, it sounds kind of like Cold War. I don't know what was really going on.
Sounded real Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. But then other women flopped, and therefore Black Widow could not get made because Ian Flux came out around that time. It did not do the numbers, and then Lionsgate was like, you know what?
And this is pre-MCU Black Widow, right?
This is like pre-MCU Black Widow. They were like, we're not going to do it. So then in 2006, rights reverted back to Marvel because they didn't make the movie, so bye-bye Black Widow. And that is when the long and arduous process of casting Black Widow began, right? And that is where Emily Blunt comes in.
Right.
This is so horrible to me. So they wanted her for Black Widow, but you know how they have like contract situations where it's like, oh, I have to fulfill another movie for this studio, and the movie they wanted her to do was Gulliver's Travels.
This is with Jack Black, right?
With Jack Black is the movie that prevented her from being Black Widow in Iron Man 2.
That's sad.
It was so sad. It's so sad.
But, I don't want to shit on Jack Black because I like Jack Black.
It's not his fault.
But yeah, that movie just wasn't wasn't
Gulliver's
great.
Travels versus anything Marvel.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, of course, like maybe you didn't know just how big it was going to end up being, but still, like that's like right there, like cutting out like 5 movies at least.
Wow. Would you think they paid for the rights for something like that? Where does that negotiation even begin, given the history of Marvel, the comics, the residuals, all the extra money? You know, you guys should tell us what you think they paid for. Maybe we'll ask.
But Joe, you might be able to fill me in a little bit more on this because I know you know like comic book history a little bit better than I do. Sure. But didn't Marvel like sell off the rights to like a lot of their characters back then because
they weren't doing well in the
they were trying to avoid going bankrupt.
Yeah,
right?
it was a bankruptcy thing, and there is a whole article I read about this, but it was I want to say it was like Ike Perlmutter that was the one that really sold all the properties off. It was something like that. You know, Fox obviously got the X-Men. I think Sony obviously got Spider-Man. But there was a and those characters were sold off.
Universal got the Hulk.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the Punisher was somewhere. Yeah, like they were all split up. And then I think more so in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or really when Disney took over, is when they started acquiring a lot of those properties back. But a lot of them were reverting back due to rights and things like that, just the time frames. But yeah, it's a deep dive. I'd have to really look deeper into that. If you want to find out more about that, check out our friends Murphy's Multiverse.
Oh, there you go.
Charles Murphy, he has a deep dive on that stuff, and you can check out all that Marvel stuff over there.
Salute to the one person in the office who was like, we should probably get those back.
Yeah.
Right.
Salute to that person, whoever you are, wherever you are.
Well, that person made a great choice.
Probably started with Iron Man, right?
Because they wanted to make
because Iron Man, the original Iron Man was under Paramount. Is that right? And then the Incredible Hulk was Universal, and then after that was when they started bringing everything together.
I believe that even then, I feel like Paramount was doing a lot of these all the way up until, I want to say, even the first Avengers. Now, here's where it gets tricky because I could be wrong, but this is why we have computers in front of us. Right?
Shout out to computers.
So Josh is going to look that up. But yeah, look, the Black Widow's journey from the page to the screen has been a long one, to say the least. And to talk about, funny enough, with Emily Blunt, I know that more recently she's really shied away from all these superhero questions because of the Invisible Woman stuff. Do you think that any of this has to do with the Black Widow stuff? Because that's a long process for her too. And this is also right around the time I believe John Krasinski was probably up for the role of Captain America, which is ironic.
Oh my gosh. A cursed family. But I would say that she probably does feel like a little bit burned by it, right? Like getting hyped up by fan casts.
Sure. And probably a little annoyed by it too.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
But then, not knowing if they're going to actually go through with it. And then at the end of the day, if you get hyped and then you lose out on it.
And then you see all the money.
You see all the money. Yeah. The dollar signs before her eyes.
Oh, God.
Crumbling. I'm actually sad that there was a treatment by Nicole Perlman, who did the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, wow.
In 2014 for Black Widow. And I'm like, I want to know what she was doing Black Widow.
In 2004, this is well established into the MCU.
Yeah. So,
wow.
And because they had been, even after Iron Man 2, they had told Scarlett Johansson, we're going to do a movie for you, right? There's going to be a Black Widow solo movie. So that's like 10 years that we have been waiting for this Black Widow solo movie. I don't understand. And then they even adjusted the number of movies she was going to appear in after the second Avengers because they had not expected her to be that popular.
Really?
Which is crazy to me because there's only
Scarlett
one.
Johansson.
Well, Scarlett Johansson, A. B, Black Widow is like the only woman fighting in the MCU at that point, right? Everyone else is either the love interest or just hello, I am a scientist or whatever.
I'm weaving magic.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes sense. Of course, people are going to want to see more of her. And also, she has no backstory.
Has anything ever come out about what that iteration of the movie plotline was going to be?
That I haven't seen anything about it. The only one that I saw in depth about was David Hayter's, which was a little bit strange, but it would have been an interesting take.
Hey, Cold War, right?
Exactly, Cold War.
So Josh, it looks like you have an answer to that.
Yeah. So but before I get into that though, but look at Wolverine Origins.
Right.
I mean, that was bizarre.
Not every origin story is.
Yeah. So going through all the original Avengers movies, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Captain America, the First Avenger, all of those were done by different, not Disney.
Okay.
Everything except for the Hulk was Paramount. The Incredible Hulk was Universal, but the first Avengers movie was Disney.
Right.
But also, it was a co-thing with Paramount, though, because I believe their logo is still
Marvel Studios was a co-thing with all of them. But Iron Man 2 was just Marvel Studios and Paramount. Disney is not listed on there at all.
I did not know that. That is very interesting.
Let me pull the Avengers back up, because I think that was solely Disney.
Then? How much money did Paramount get to then give it all back to, or, you know?
That's a great question.
They probably needed it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they got that Mission Impossible money, right?
Right. Yeah. So the first Avengers movie was just production company was Marvel Studios, and it was distributed by Disney. I don't see Paramount listed on here anywhere.
Interesting.
It's really fascinating. Well, look, Black Widow is coming out, and we're going to be talking about the film. All of us have seen the movie, and I think that now's a good time to really start deep diving into the picture. Here's the thing. Jay, I have to ask you, how familiar were you, or let me ask you this, what did you want to see out of a Black Widow movie before going into seeing the movie you saw?
I wanted to see a kick-ass action, women being shot and portrayed in the same grandeur as all of the other active superheroes, and not, oh my God, I broke my nail, I'm hurt. I just wanted to see the same kick-ass as all the other films. And I don't know when you guys are going to watch this.
Oh, well, this is going to drop is when the embargo drops. So I think
So it'll be like a review, but we're not going to spoil the end of the film.
Yeah, we're going to spoil the film when the review embargo drops.
Oh, okay. But we're not going to spoil like the final scene and stuff.
Yeah,
like
you can? That was the best part of the movie.
Can't we?
Can we?
Yeah, as long as we put spoiler in the title.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
spoilers.
good.
All right.
So spoiler alert.
Okay,
Spoiler
so
alert.
spoilers. We're going to spoil the entire movie.
Well, before we get into that,
And then what happened?
So if you haven't watched it yet, and you don't want to be spoiled,
don't watch this.
Stop listening, stop watching,
Press
because I will
pause.
not be held responsible. And if any of you yell at us on Twitter for spoiling it for you, we will refer back to the fact that we
told you. Also, I just want to say that I love when Jason. I thought you wanted to see women getting shot, and I was like, okay. And I did
on film. Shot on film.
Shot on film. I understand.
Oh no! We don't want the women getting capped
very soon. After.
But the action—that's what did it for me. It was just great. It was refreshing. It was hype to see women going hard, just like all of the other Marvel movies, and that's what did it for me.
I almost failed to mention Josh as part of this, and that's to talk about some of the creators that are on this Black Widow film.
Tell us.
Oh, yeah. So I guess we can jump into that now. So the movie itself was directed by Cate Shortland. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her body of work. I was not. She has it's a weird timeline for her stuff. Starting on IMDb, her first credit is a short back in 1998 called Pent Up House.
Oh, okay.
But since then, like she's been steadily working. She's got credits in 2000, 2002, 2001, 2003. She was on a TV series called Secret Life of Us.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then more recently, in 2019, the series Smilf, which I've heard of. I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And then Black Widow. So to me, it's actually kind of interesting that she was hired to be the director of this, considering like she's mainly known for like sitcom type stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I mean that's not that's not any shade at her, because like what was it McKay. What's his name? Adam McKay has done like he's gone from doing like really like comedic type stuff to doing kind of sort of serious stuff too.
Right.
So
that's not
pitch.
different.
Yeah. But like this is weird to me. Just like Peter Jackson going from doing things like The Frighteners and all of his like weird horror movies to doing Lord of the Rings.
Right.
You know what's funny about her is I was doing this deep dive, and we'll get into this later in the show where we talk about when I talked to some of the cast. When I interviewed her, I did a deep dive and I watched an old video. She was on a panel talking about how her journey in the film, etc., and how she got there and how she was getting grants when other people weren't for women in film in Australia, where she's from. And at that time she was saying that all of the characters she ever wanted to work with had power at their core and strength of women and those type of things. So we'll talk about it later in the show, and I asked her if this was a full circle moment for her to get this gig. So that's
a great question and insight into Cate Shortland.
I have a question for all of you guys that we'll wrap back around to when we get into that. But on the story end of this, this is also kind of interesting to me because the story was by Jack Schaeffer and Ned Benson.
Yes,
Jack Schaeffer.
Right, that's right. It went through like several iterations.
I'm a big Jack Schaeffer fan.
But this final version, Jack Schaeffer and Ned Benson are the only two credits for the story. So all those other iterations that came before, like not even being used.
Right.
Yeah. So Jack Schaeffer, you would know from WandaVision. That's the most popular thing that she's probably done outside of now Black Widow. But she also did the Olaf's Frozen Adventure short.
Oh, okay.
And she wrote the screenplay for a movie called The Hustle, which I'm not really familiar with.
The Hustle. Oh no, that's not Hustlers.
Not Hustlers.
Hustle. I feel like
wait, The Hustle, is that the with oh my God.
I feel like I remember that.
Rebel Wilson.
Yeah, it was Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
That's right.
Why can't I remember her name? I was like, Les Mis.
Salute to women.
Yeah, so like I'm familiar with the movie, but again, that's another weird thing because her credit list is extremely short. Like she has like two shorts, the Olaf thing, The Hustle, and then WandaVision, and that's
She's
that's
probably
it.
one of those brilliant people who worked in the shadows, and finally somebody saw her.
Like maybe a staff writer.
I mean, it almost seems like this could have been her big break, and then she got WandaVision based on this.
Right.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
That's very possible. And then Ned Benson,
WandaVision.
He also worked on the story aspect though, but he has a lot more credits as producer and director. Mainly things that he worked on as a writer though. But he like his really the only thing that he's really done is something called The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby.
Oh wow.
And then like before that, just like 2 or 3 shorts between like 2003 and 2010.
That's crazy.
So that's really bizarre. So like I don't know if he has a connection to Jack Schaeffer, and like she brought him in, or like how he really got involved with this. But then the screenplay itself was written by Eric Pearson, who has a long history of stuff. Like he wrote the screenplay for this, Godzilla vs. Kong, Thor Ragnarok. He wrote a bunch of episodes of Agent Carter.
He wrote the screenplay for Thor Ragnarok?
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
A bunch of the Marvel one-shots. Detective Pikachu. He was a script. He's been a script doctor for a bunch of stuff too. Detective Pikachu, Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, Pacific Rim Uprising, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Ant-Man.
I don't think it's usual that you see scriptwriter or script.
Now that's somebody I want to talk to.
These are all uncredited.
Right, but someone decided to put them on there.
Yeah.
What a creative
let
person.
me make sure
I
y'all
would
know.
love to now see, that's who I'd want to interview.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's a brilliant, for you.
Well, because that's the kind of thing that Carrie Fisher, that's the kind of stuff that she did too.
Yep.
So like to me, that's kind of fascinating. Is like the people who take these scripts and then doctor. Like I want to know what the original version looked like before he got his hands on it.
I was gonna say like maybe he doctored the Black Widow one so much that then they were like, I guess you just.
Well, we'll get into this in a second.
I mean, that's possible.
But it's interesting because, Josh, I know that you at some point in your life, maybe even now, you were an aspiring screenwriter. But the one thing that you had talked about was dialogue was one of your big struggles.
Yeah. So like I enjoy coming up with like story premises and ideas and like pitches for like movies or TV shows or whatever. But I have trouble fleshing them out into a full on script. Like the one that I've been passing around with it to everyone. I think Tatiana, I think you were the last one that I sent this to, is a script that I actually wrote in college. So that was like 10 years ago now. That was college that I wrote that in. And like I think. Personally, for me, I think the story itself is a good idea, but I think the script is horrible. So like I would benefit from a script doctor.
Oh, okay.
Or just someone to be like, here's the idea.
I have an idea.
Can you fix that out? Can you fix that?
But see, this is good to know because for all of you fans that are listening to this and you may not know what a script doctor was, there's the explanation for Josh. Is that's what a script doctor does.
Yeah, they come in, they take the script, and they're like, okay, what do we need to tighten up here?
Right, and I know that we were talking about different writers for this project, and we're going to be revealing some of that, like Jack Schaeffer and all these folks. We're going to be talking about them a little bit later on too, because there's some news that we broke. This is something else we're going to do on this show. Is we're going to track our own news. Now, this part of it, we did the exclusives here when Josh, myself, and Tatiana were part of that hashtag show. Charles Murphy, as you guys may know, he was a big contributor there as well. Created Murphy's Multiverse. We left and created the Illuminerdi. But we're going to go back and look at some of the stories we dropped there later on after the show, or after we do the review, which we should get into right now. David Harbour in this. But there were some other comedic moments that would happen, and they just did not land for me. Yeah. And it seems like in the live theater, it kind of didn't land either.
All the Florence scenes landed. as they should with the posing, as you mentioned. Honestly, it seems like this is a gift to Scarlett Johansson, who is also an executive producer of the film. So after
credit to Scarlett Johansson.
Shout out to women.
Exactly.
And I mean, it has to have some comedic moments because that's just on brand with how Marvel does their movies. But yeah, there were too many. It was too many. Check the box here. Right. Put this here. Put that there.
And it doesn't really fit with, I think, Natasha, right?
No, not at all.
She's not a funny person.
She's not a funny person by any means.
Well, I mean, she's had her jokey moments, like in was it the Winter Soldier when when they're plugging in the USB thing and she's like, "Do you want to play a game?"
Right.
and and she's like, "Oh, that's from," and like Steve was like, "Yeah, I that's a movie that I actually have seen."
But I think that character was handled really well in that movie.
Yeah.
And also, this is another thing. Tatiana made a great point as we were watching this movie. It's that Natasha, the tone of Natasha is a lot different than the other Avengers. And she's not as playful. So I'm not sure if this iteration of Natasha lended itself well to be a solo film. Now, not saying I didn't want a solo film.
Okay, so building off of that, though, let me ask you a question then. How did you guys feel about Thor Ragnarok?
I loved it.
Excellent.
Because in Thor Ragnarok, he was almost a completely different character than he was in the first two movies.
I don't have a problem with that because Thor Ragnarok was good. You know what I mean? Like, and no gauge on this movie. I'm not saying it. Look, this is a review, right?
Yeah.
On the scale of my Marvel spectrum, this is lower tier for me.
Right.
And it's not because of it's not because of anybody that was in the movie, because I think everybody did a fine job at their roles. It's because the story to me had no stakes throughout the whole movie. Nothing in that movie, it was all backstory. It starts off in Civil War, or really it starts off in like, what, 1995?
The way back.
The 1995, yeah. And then we get, like, it's 21 years later, and it's after Civil War. This movie would have been the perfect movie to come out right after Civil War.
Which I think that's definitely where it belonged.
So, okay, well then, what about if you compare her to, say, Wanda and the WandaVision series? Obviously, two different vehicles, a movie and a series, but they didn't force the comedic aspect of WandaVision. Same writer, Jack Schaeffer. So why put in those, what was the interference that they had to check all these boxes in this feature film versus putting in more comedic elements in WandaVision? The comedic elements of that show didn't even involve Wanda. So it's kind of like the mishandling of female characters and what they want to give and what they don't want to give.
And WandaVision was a little bit different too because it was so experimental. And I think that, like, it lended itself really well to do whatever you wanted to do.
And so much of the humor was referential there too.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like it really reflects on
the
Wanda.
format itself just built right into that.
Right.
But in this film, like, look, I think everybody was cast really well. That, like, Sarah Finn is probably one of the best casting directors in Hollywood, if not the best casting director in Hollywood. And she understands, like, who they need to play these roles. Like I said, David Harbour, I walked away a big Red Guardian fan. I think there's a lot of charm to that character.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like, the Melina character, like, fell flat to me. No fault of Rachel Weisz.
Except for her accent.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of her Russian accent. We were talking about that. But I understand why the character was there and it was needed. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this movie came like 10 years too late.
Do you think it would have made a better series?
I would love to have seen
I think the series would have been really interesting. And the series would have let us have at least one episode in the Red Room. I'm sorry, I really just feel like we needed to have the Red Room. The fact that it was just a montage really bothers me.
Right.
I also think that in Avengers 2, we kind of touch on what the future of the MCU is and where those characters are going, right? Because they all get glimpses of what Wanda's doing to them, including Wanda herself. So we see Tony Stark in space, and all the Avengers are dead. So that's his thing. We see Thor with Asgard kind of in shambles. We understand that's going to happen in Ragnarok. Nothing happens to Hawkeye because he's been mind controlled before. Steve Rogers gets his dance with Peggy Carter, which eventually fulfills itself. And Black Widow, we see her in the Red Room, which we don't really see much of her in the Red Room.
We don't see it.
Well, didn't we see the Red Room also in Agent Carter TV series?
Yeah.
Like briefly.
But, just not like with her.
Right, because that was like 45 some odd years before that.
The action, though, in this film, I think, was great. Like, and like Marvel action.
I think it was well directed.
Yeah, Marvel action is top notch. That's really hard to beat. Marvel's very good at that. I think if we're going to talk wardrobe, I think the costumes look great. I was a big fan of Taskmaster. Josh had one complaint. How come he never wore his hood?
He didn't wear the hood. I was like, he has the hood.
Right.
Why? But yeah.
I also think I think one thing that I really liked the theme of family.
Yes.
And that how in fact they really were a family, even if they were incredibly estranged and under a lot of pressure, and yet also that her and the Avengers were a family. I thought there was such a nice tide, and yet to not have Avengers in that film, to not have her reunite with them at the end there, that would have been the perfect tie-in to Infinity War, right? Like it's like, okay, Civil War, we've broken up, and then at the end of the movie she goes back to them, and then we see that connection.
Yeah.
But they weren't there for whatever reason, budget, or because, well, she's already dead now, so who cares? And then, so that made the theme fall a little bit flat when it could have been such a powerful moment. Like, I feel like we could have been crying some buckets in that first,
I mean,
absolutely.
Thinking about that actually would have been really good if they had tied the end of Black Widow into the beginning of Infinity War when she was going off with Steve. Like if they could have showed her meeting up with Steve and like going off and doing whatever it was that they were going to be doing before they went to help Vision.
Right.
Well, also like there's that scene, and I think that it lands a little bit more. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people have a debate about this, whether you watch the MCU movies chronologically or release order. Me personally, I think chronologically is better, and this is the perfect example of that. Because I think this movie plays better if you do watch it after Civil War and before Infinity War.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like, and that's why in a great moment, like you had just mentioned, Tatiana, in Infinity War, when they're saving Wanda and Vision, when it's Steve and Natasha and the Falcon, she's wearing the Florence Pugh vest. So it just makes more sense, and it even lands harder in Endgame, where after the snap, she's almost talking to, or Steve Rogers comes back in and she's talking about family and like being like, this is like the family she had or something.
Right.
So it makes so much more sense for it to play it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of montages in the middle.
Yeah.
And no bows at the end.
Right.
So we were talking a little bit before about how David Harbour is really good in this movie. For you guys, what was your favorite scene or moment with him in the film?
I mean, like the humorous part would of course be him trying on the Red Guardian outfit again.
That's great.
Like, yes, look, it's perfect.
Pandemic wings.
And then followed very quickly after that, where he sings Florence Pugh's character. He sings Yelena the song. He sings
American Pie.
American Pie to show her like, hey, no, I do remember our moments as a family together. And I was like, oh.
I mean, that was a really good emotional moment, because like for her, she was what, 4?
Yeah.
When, like as a kid before that happened. So for her, that was a real family. Like she probably didn't know anything.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, she didn't know that it was fake.
So here's a fun fact about this, and I think you guys were there and heard it. But I talked to David Harbour for this, and he said that when they were in the car, that they had a tape. That whole American Pie thing was improv.
The scene was very well written where we had together, but I was like, wouldn't it be great if there's something a little more personal before he left the room? You know, that he could say without saying, I tried as much as I could, but I know I failed you, but this is what I did do. And, you know, we came up with this idea that maybe when she had trouble sleeping because she was so terrified at night, and had such a transition, that he would drive her around and put on this audio tape, and, you know, and she'd fall asleep to it. And it became like this transitional object for her. That
one improv scene became such a significant part of that father-daughter relationship.
Right.
Okay, so here's another. Do you think as a fake,
which was really cool, by the way,
as a fake American fake father, do you think he was a good fake father?
Say that one more time.
How much would Chuck?
So he was undercover when they were doing this family thing. What was it, in Ohio?
Yeah,
or something. So he was a fake American and a fake father to those two girls, but more so to Elena, because she was younger. She didn't know what was going on. Natasha knew like what the deal was there. But do you think he was actually a good father to Elena when they were there?
I think for those 3 years he was. It was 3 years he was in their life. And obviously Yelena even holds this regard to being like her best memory, right? Of having a family for 3 years. Right. All of that was real to her. Like I will say, Tatiana, and that's where I agree. The family stuff hits. Like the family stuff works. It makes sense, but I think that's the credit to those 4 actors.
Right.
Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh, Scarlett Johansson,
They had really nice chemistry together. Really good chemistry together.
And the sister stuff was great. Like you can almost tell that, like, like the sister sibling rivalry thing was a lot of fun. It almost felt like that one the first scene they had is like dinner was like two college kids coming back to back from school, and one does really well, and the other one's like the younger sister trying to live up to the expectation.
So I think one of the interesting aspects of that for me too, though, is that after they had gotten out of the red room, like once their second Natasha's second round of training and Elena's first round of training was done, it seems like they were working together. Like it felt like they still had contact with each other.
Yeah.
While they were working for this department or whatever.
But she poses a lot of, like, Yelena's character poses a lot of good questions for Natasha. Like, why didn't Steve Rogers and Captain America come and take down the Red Room?
Right.
Like, why didn't some of these things happen? While Natasha was, I guess, saving the world and posing.
Right.
Well, yeah, because she left. She defected from Russia and joined S.H.I.E.L.D. So, I mean, that is a really good point.
But it's like weird that they have her ask those questions and there's no.
Yeah, why didn't her defection include taking them down?
Yeah,
sure.
Maybe they added those in post. You know how they changed some of the dialogue just so it gives them some space to grow with, because we know Black Widow's fate. Yeah, and so maybe it's giving them an out to make a series.
Yeah, or maybe that's where like the Yelena story will go when she does finally meet up with the Avengers.
Maybe she gets a series.
Because I think honestly, I think that would have been more interesting. Would have been to see her, like, Natasha's defection from Russia or the U.S.S.R. to join S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly.
Well, I always thought
not necessarily an origin of her as the Black Widow, because that would have been her origin with the KGB or what.
Right. But her origin as an Avenger.
Exactly.
Well, does anybody remember this cartoon called? It was called. What was it called? Avengers.
Earth's Mightiest
Heroes.
I remember it. I don't remember a lot of the storylines from that one, though.
First of all, the cartoon's phenomenal. It's amazing. But Natasha starts off as a Hydra agent, and I don't think she ever flips, actually.
What was that? Was that the one where Red Skull got the Iron Man armor?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But eventually, I mean, her storyline's so intertwined with Clinton Barton's, which Hawkeye,
of course,
which it obviously is in the comics. But I almost thought when they originally announced this, they never gave plot details. But in my headcanon, I just thought that it would have been the story about her defecting using Hawkeye, like her being a double agent and Hawkeye not trusting her.
Right. And like finally seeing Budapest or whatever.
Exactly. Because they talk
Budapest.
They talk about it so much within the MCU, and we never see it. We never see it.
Drives me nuts.
So I think it would have been a cool story to kind of like see her defect to S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers, which would have been really cool. Like her playing this double agent of her being a badass agent. So I don't know. I think that was that, but we got a lot of Cold War stuff, huh?
Maybe they'll do the flashback if they do a series.
You know what? Honestly, I do think that the Black Widow would have lent itself really good to like an Alias type of series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about this Cold War stuff though, like I mean, we know eventually X-Men are going to be coming to the Marvel MCU. Red Guardian could play into that a little bit with Wolverine, because who was the Wolverine, like the Cold War?
Puck.
No, the Russian with the
Omega Red.
Omega Red.
So there was a rumor. There was a rumor. Obviously, it didn't pan out, but there was a rumor floating around the internet and about how Omega Red was going to be in some post-credit scene, or maybe in like a prison scene or something.
I remember hearing that. I don't remember what movie that was,
which would have made sense, but it didn't happen. But then again, we also have to keep in mind that this movie did come out like a year after it was supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but Jay, what did you think about the movie overall?
Overall, it was entertaining. I can't. Full disclosure, I had to take a little,
little siesta
during the middle portion, during the second act of the show. I love backstory and I love family history, but some of it was a little bit lengthy, a little bit too much dialogue for me. But overall, I enjoyed the film. What was most epic? I like big epic scenes, and my favorite stuff more so involved David Harbour and him being in the jail and talking to him about what that looks like on a shooting day. So I like the big epic scenes. I enjoyed it, yes. Is it in my top tier Marvel films? No. Absolutely down in the lower half. But who is to blame for not, kind of buttressing it to the top of the Marvel universe? Especially after delaying it for so long.
Well, do you think if it had come out after Civil War instead of now, do you think you'd be ranking it higher?
It would be red hot because it would be new information, new material that feeds directly into the story continuity. But now putting it after, same problem. We know her fate. what we learned in the film doesn't add anything to the expansion of the Marvel universe, the multiverse, or any of that. So the timing of it is just very, very poor.
Right, exactly. Like, I can't imagine it opening the door to the Phase 4.
To nothing.
Like, it makes no sense. How could that be the first Phase 4 movie? Like, what were they thinking about that?
I agree. I agree with that too. Mainly what you said, Jay, is that opening the doors to the multiverse. Right now, Loki's on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Loki is blowing. It's such a better Marvel product than what Black Widow is. I understand why we got Black Widow. I just feel we got it. We should have gotten it earlier.
Right.
Like, or I would have rather seen Black Widow before Thor 2.
Yeah.
Before Thor Dark World.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. But
sure.
Okay, so I'm going to posit another question for you guys. Instead of now, what if this movie had actually come out later, like maybe after Spider-Man No Way Home, or after Doctor Strange, and had tied into the multiverse, and now we see Natasha come back.
Well, I think at that point we're talking like things that could happen storyline.
Yeah.
I think
that's like a different movie.
That's a whole nother script.
But I think the better question is there's two questions about this. How would this movie have played if it would have come out after Endgame? Mainly because at that point we hadn't seen any of the Disney Plus stuff.
Right.
So it doesn't have that kind of like. So do you think that the hype train would have been there for Black Widow right after Endgame? Because you got to think Endgame was here. Like it was like that was our reshaping of the MCU. But then we're reverting back to the MCU's previous 10 years. So do you think that would have been a letdown if it was released right after Endgame? Or do you think that, we would have been there for it and just anticipating those Disney Plus shows even more?
I think it should have been chronological. It should have come out after
Civil War.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more of a letdown coming out after Endgame than now coming out of Disney Plus shows.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because it would have been like, oh, we're finally getting her story.
Yeah.
This is the first thing we're getting. And then we're like, excuse me? But now it's just like one more thing we're getting. Mm-hmm. So then, and we've had time to process, to grieve, to move on from Natasha.
It's just filler.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's literally, it's in comic book terms, it's the filler-ish.
Right. And plus, now we have that post-credit scene, which is telling us where Yelena's going to go. And we are all excited about that.
And that's like the best part of the film.
And we'll talk about that in a second. Because I agree. Like, that's the only, like, literally that out of 3-4 minutes, that's the only part you really need from that whole movie.
Because you already know.
Right. One thing, though, is there are small Easter eggs I was able to pick up on. Now, I'm not going to sit here and ramble off a million of them because I didn't watch the movie that in depth to be like, oh, I know that. And probably some of them I didn't know. But I did know who the Winter Guard was that the Red Guardian is from. The guy the giant dude that he beats arm wrestling, they make reference to it. Mm-hmm. That's Ursa Major. He's a giant bear guy from the Winter Guard. They also, Yelena calls him the Crimson Dynamo, another member of the Red Guard, and that's when he stops and said, oh no, I'm the Red Guardian. So those are some small Winter Guard stuff. Yeah. But I would love to see a Winter Guard like Disney Plus fun series.
That'd be fun.
Like that would be really cool. Like just to see what how Russian superheroes are handled.
Well, I think that would also be cool because like when Guardians of the Galaxy came in, they had absolutely no connection to anything else in the Marvel universe at the time. Like they introduced the Power Stone, but we really didn't know what that was or what was going on with it when it came out. They weren't connected to anyone. They weren't connected to Iron Man. Like they were just their own thing. And seeing like something else that exists within the Marvel universe but isn't connected to the Avengers at all, I think would be super fun.
Right.
For sure. For sure.
I agree. I think that with the way though that this movie kind of another thing too is like Dracoff. Like I know that I think the Taskmaster thing was a huge letdown.
Yeah.
The Taskmaster is so revered in the MC or in Marvel just in general, being such a cool character, and I think this version of the Taskmaster has one line.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, and that's like, is he dead?
Right.
At the end, like when they kill Dracoff. But
which was actually like that was a nice line in that you do recognize that she was a victim.
I mean the power set was cool too, and like the way it was displayed.
Like it wasn't like a.
I think my issue with Taskmaster in this was that we know Taskmaster as a person, like some like I don't know whether he's a mutant or whatever that just has that ability to what's the DC
to master tasks?
Sportsmaster. I think.
I think it would be more like Deathstroke,
but here. Taskmaster was created. Everything that it was able to do, or she was able to do, was because of the chip in her head and the programming from this agency, which is okay. But now there's nowhere for that character to go because now we know that she was brainwashed, like the Winter Soldier was. So now is she going to be a good guy?
Well, here's the thing: is it possible that they can take the Taskmaster technology and give that to another character, thus getting the true Taskmaster that a lot of the Marvel fans want?
Maybe
because it's a chip in her head that's really making her.
It's possible. It's absolutely possible. But to me, that would almost now be like going back to DC and bringing back Doomsday again.
Right.
It's like we've already seen this villain, so bringing in another character as that villain.
Right.
Again,
It would make more sense for the villain for Taskmaster to have gotten away, even as Dreykov,
Right.
burns in fiery hell.
I mean, I will say that's one thing that both Winter Soldier and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier did really well, is that they let Baron Zemo get away, and he's continuing to run around in the MCU causing havoc, which I thought would have been really cool for Taskmaster.
Yeah,
exactly. Because I thought Baron Zemo was like, I really enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier overall. I thought it was a really good series, but Baron Zemo was a big part of that, just because like seeing his character interact with everyone was just so much fun.
Yeah. Or if you wanted like a closed loop emotional pull for Taskmaster, then they thought that Rachel Weisz, their mom, was dead, but she wasn't dead because she was Taskmaster. Like that's what I expected was going to happen, and then it didn't happen.
It didn't.
And she didn't, like, even though I love her and like she was still funny in the scenes with David Harbour, she wasn't really needed in the family dynamic scenes.
Right.
They could have just been David Harbour, and then it's like, where is mom? Oh, she's dead. It's so sad. Oh, just kidding. She's our enemy.
And she's Taskmaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I mean, David Harbour was great though in this. Like, I think that like the comedic moments really David Harbour carried those.
Right.
All except that posing thing with Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
By the way, something I will say is it weird that I'm more excited to see like this Florence Pugh as the Black Widow than I ever was for Scarlett Johansson? Like,
No,
I think
that's
Florence
not
Pugh
weird.
is so charismatic.
She is. She's such a versatile actress. And the character's already more fun.
Yeah, well, I think she was introduced
than
better.
Natasha's been gotten to be. Yeah.
Like Natasha was just introduced as
Eye candy.
Yeah, eye candy, and to be like an eye candy distraction for Tony.
Right. But also, like there was like the bare minimum of like, oh, I'm subverting the trope. You think I'm eye candy, but really I'm a badass.
Right.
But it didn't go any further than that. It's just like, I'm an eye candy badass.
Right. Yeah. It by doing that, it just leaned into that more.
Right.
And now there's nowhere to go with it because we know her fate.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel about the mind control element about the widows? Because that's something I was not privy to in any
I
of the
didn't know
iterations.
about that either. I thought I
Well, it seemed like that was a new thing.
Yeah, I was
for this.
confused by it. I did not understand what was happening at first.
When the movie opened, Tatiana didn't even. She was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, well, because
Exactly.
Natasha even mentioned that during or not Natasha, Elena mentioned that during the movie, is that they do things differently now. Like, since you left, they do things differently. Like the gas or the chemicals or whatever that they used to mind control them was after she had defected. So that was
because she had
probably
defected,
because she had
they had to like
they
crack down harder.
Right, they probably invented that to keep that from happening.
Which is all
again.
the more reason why I just think, like, even though, like, because like you said, we know her fate, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect our view of Natasha. But I think it would affect your view of a character that she left behind someone who's like her sister. Not to mention all these women, right? Like, why didn't she go back for them? Like, what was so hard about trying to save them? There was never even an attempt. So,
right, and we don't know whether that was at like the direction of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they were like, okay, well, now you're with us. This is not one of our priorities. We have other stuff that we're dealing with, so we're going to go do that and just leave this alone.
Right.
Or that she was just like, nah, I don't care.
Wait, do we have to assume though? Like, Tatiana, you actually brought up I think it was you that brought up this point though. That
it's always me. No, just
that when we were watching the movie, and we have to assume though that Florence Pugh Yelena, we have to assume that she disappeared in the snap, right? Because why wouldn't the Black Widows have like been more of a thing during that 5 years later part?
Right.
Because it's all about the Dora Milaje.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but see, even that would have been more interesting is if this movie had taken place between Infinity War and Endgame, while Natasha was trying to get her bearings and figure out what she was doing. She has this thing that she now has to go back and do to kind of...
Right. And like I think you actually mentioned that. If it had taken place between Infinity War and Endgame, we could have seen the Dreykov trying to take over what's left of the world with the Black Widow.
Which would have made more sense.
Yeah, which would have been really interesting. And then Natasha has to deal with that and see the like bringing back together and falling apart of yet another family in the...
And it would have given us something with that 5 years, like that in between 5 year period that we don't know what was really going on.
I think the drama would have been better there because it would have been something that she was forced to come back and deal with rather than Yelena sending her the gas and her being like, "What is this? I'm gonna," it's like Indiana Jones getting the Grail Bible that his dad made and being like, "I don't know why I have this."
Just crack it and throw it on your face. You'll be
fine. And like actually, it was exactly the same. It was exactly the same as with Indiana Jones because Sean Connery sent him the Grail Bible, and he was like, "Okay, I have this. Now I have to find out why it was sent to me." She got the cure for that gas. She didn't know what it was. She was like, "Well, now I need to go find out what this is." It's exactly the same plot line.
True.
So Black Widow is actually just Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Maybe we just need a little short film of the training of the Black Widows.
Exactly.
That'd be cool.
Exactly.
Like
I will say
like
that.
a pre, you know, Pixar.
Yeah.
Like little short films, like
or like Marvel used to do the one shots, right?
Exactly.
A Marvel one shot for the Red Room.
Yeah, they had what was it? Was the last one the Mandarin one?
I think so.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they should bring back those Marvel one shots and put them on Disney
Because there's
Plus.
so much.
I just want to say shout out to OT. I don't know how to say her
I was
last
just gonna say
name.
OT. He was great.
Yeah.
I wish he
had more.
But
Yeah, he didn't have very much, but I hope we see him again.
yeah, I think that this is a good role for him to expand into the MCU. Like, it's small enough where you understand who the character is, but I think that it's a character that would do great in something like Secret Invasion.
Right.
And I really hope that he's in Secret Invasion.
For sure.
What do we know about Secret Invasion?
That Samuel L. Jackson is in it.
And that Ben Mendelsohn is in it.
He is. He's playing a character named Nick Fury, and I think Ben Mendelsohn is also Skrull.
Wait, what's his name?
Yeah. Emilia Clarke is in it.
Oh, that's right.
Olivia Colman is in it.
Olivia Colman. I love that.
There's a handful of casting stuff out there, but what we know is that it's about, I'm guessing, invasion of Skrulls.
Right.
But
the good Skrulls.
I will say though, and me and Josh were talking about this kind of offhand, randomly, but and this has a little to do with Black Widow, but it's kind of gonna veer off in a second. But like, I almost wish that with Civil War they would have done Captain America Civil War, and then Iron Man Civil War, and then Avengers Civil War.
Oh.
And then kind of done like, within the two movies and the time span of other movies or TV shows even at this point that would have come out, they could have been seen recruiting different members of the MCU to make this epic thing. But at the end of that movie, that's when the threat of Thanos would have come down, and that would have been like Avengers 4 or whatever.
Oh.
It would have just been a longer MCU, but I feel like Civil War got rushed through so fast, and that's such an iconic storyline that I hope they don't do that with Secret Invasion.
Yeah,
that was the whole point.
right.
Yeah, because I don't want to go back to shitting on Civil War again because I've done that enough. But my biggest issue with Civil War was the fact that they had to bring in characters that had absolutely nothing to do with anything in order to flesh out the roster because they hadn't built enough to make it feel like a real Civil War.
Right.
Like otherwise, if they hadn't brought in Ant-Man and T'Challa and Spider-Man, it would have just been a couple of guys that disagreed about something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I would love to see the whiteboard in Kevin Feige's office.
Right?
Like, I just would love to just see if it is a flow
That Charlie Day standing there with the...
Well, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they did Captain America and Iron Man Civil War, I think it would have been fun, especially having the TV shows involved.
Yeah.
Because then there would have been like a hashtag Team Iron Man, Team Captain America.
Oh my God, yeah.
And seeing which kind of like shield, right? That'd have been Team Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like you kind of gear it towards whatever it was going to be. But I think it would have been so much fun, like crossing those two things
Sad.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Missed
you're right.
opportunity.
Kevin Feige's whiteboard in his office must be like a wealth of information.
I would just like to just stand there and I won't bring a phone or anything.
Right.
I won't say anything. I just want
Take it to your grave.
I just want to see it.
This is kind of another random question, but how much longer do you think Kevin Feige is going to stay with the Marvel stuff? Because doesn't he have a Star Wars movie that's in development too?
He does.
Well, that's a movie, but like, look, I think it's going to be when he has all those characters back together. He's going to be like,
he's going to be there a long time unless he just biffs or have some kind of
because he's what 15 years now?
indiscretion on set.
Yeah.
He ain't going.
16 years he's been doing this.
But he's also like the most successful producer.
Oh,
in the world.
absolutely.
Right. As long as he enjoys it, I'm sure he'll just.
I was just going to say that he doesn't look aged. Like when you see people working on projects for a long, they look stressed out. He looks like he gets up for it every day.
Yeah, I think because there's just so much that you can explore in the Marvel universe.
Yes.
Like, there's so many places to go, and so far it's been successful, right? Once he gets if there's 3 failures in a row somehow, then maybe he'll age 10 years.
But I don't think Marvel doesn't do that. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, even the bad Marvel movies
are still all right.
Bad movies. They're just
It's because
the worst
they're really
ranking?
good at following the formula. Have the basic formula, and then when you have the basic formula perfected, that's when you can branch out. That's when you can get something like WandaVision.
Right.
Because you know what the formula is, and you're like, well, let me just Just hop over here for a second.
Well, look, I think we're at a point now where Marvel can almost do any kind of thing, and it's gonna work.
Right.
Like if they did a modern family style Marvel show, it'll work.
Right.
I mean, they kind of did it with an episode of WandaVision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? They just, I will say, Kevin Feige has like his finger to the pulse when it comes to entertainment. He understands what fans want, what fans
And
need.
it's not even close.
Yeah.
Right. That's
like,
so true.
You got to think.
Salute
Like I
to
remember
DC.
when, like, I honestly,
May they rest in peace.
I remember thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy when it was announced, and I knew who they were because I used to play this game called HeroClix. So I knew who they were. I knew Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord and these guys. But I remember thinking, like, wait a minute, Rocket Raccoon and Groot, like that, they're actually going to make this movie.
I think I knew them from the cartoon series that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah, because the storyline that I remember seeing them in was
And Rocket was Australian.
Yeah. It was like the storyline was Captain Marvel, the female Captain Marvel had just gotten her powers through Jan Rog, I think it was. But it was like, like some weird blasting thing where she got the power from him, and then they showed up to deal with something like a Skrull invasion, I think it was. But they were more serious. Like they weren't. That was
comedy.
not.
Yeah, it wasn't the Peter
Right.
Quill.
I mean, Rocket Raccoon was funny.
Yeah.
But
As
the
it
rest of
should
them
be.
were more serious.
But you were asking worst Marvel movie. The first thing that comes to mind is Thor: The Dark World.
Thor: The Dark World is
first one
mine
that comes
too.
out. Yeah.
I like for me it's tough. I've got three, like my bottom three are constantly kind of like they could probably just be like tied for the bottom, but it's Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, and Incredible Hulk. Like I like Incredible Hulk.
I don't even count Incredible Hulk, but you're right. That would also be the bottom.
But like I don't not like the movie.
Right.
I just think it's one of the worst out of them.
Well, because I feel like with Incredible Hulk.
It's not that I don't like it. It's just
Wait, what's your worst?
Yeah. I'll hold it for now.
All right, so I think Incredible Hulk is like I agree with you. I'm not a fan of Incredible Hulk, but I think that was the transition period before like the MCU.
Right.
So it was still like, all right, comic book movies. This is what it needs to be.
Right.
Like, the Incredible Hulk still touts that line of being that. Like, I'm happy Tim Roth is coming back to avenge that abomination, and I mean the character, not the movie.
Right.
But there was some really cheesy shit in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like really cheesy shit.
Let us know what your least favorite Marvel movie is.
Oh, okay. Speaking of Incredible Hulk, though, which Incredible Hulk do you think was better, the Eric Bana one or the Ed Norton one?
I literally cannot remember the difference, but the one that has I can't. I don't even remember. Just the one that has the dad that is still part of the MCU.
Yeah,
right?
they both do.
Really?
The dad now.
The one that is part of the MCU.
I only like Lou Ferrigno.
Well, I mean, like that's the one thing I did like about Black Widow is that they did use what's his name,
Ross.
General Ross to come back.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that
him.
was pretty
That's
cool.
who I'm talking about.
William Hurt. Yeah.
William Hurt. Well, so like I really enjoy William Hurt now, but when they first did the Incredible Hulk movie, I was like, man, I wish they had brought Sam Elliott back.
Hey, quick question. Just since us kind of talking about this now, what are the chances that Incredible Hulk movie isn't in the MCU universe, like multiverse? Like, what if that movie with Edward Norton is a different multiverse movie, but it's the same
Same General Ross.
Same General Ross, and Mark Ruffalo is this version. Just out of curiosity, just throwing that around.
I mean, that could be something that they could retcon for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would make sense just because Mark Ruffalo's Hulk has never matched with the other Hulks to me.
And yeah, there's no Betty Ross.
Yeah, there's nobody Ross. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think there are
another disrespect to Scarlett Johansson and Natasha is putting her with Incredible Hulk?
Yeah. What? Yeah. What?
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Betty Ross. I'm sorry that they stole your man. And
for me, I think for me the worst part about the Incredible Hulk movie was that they introduced the leader, they introduced Doc Samson, and they didn't do anything with either of them.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they'll appear in She-Hulk.
I can only hope.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
It's like Doc Samson, especially Ty Burrell as Doc Samson, would be amazing. Tim Blake Nelson as the leader would also be
and who would have
amazing.
thought that Ty Burrell would have had the career that he did after Modern Family and everything else, right? Because at that point, he wouldn't have been like a household name. But having him come back now as Doc Samson, I think would be great.
Yeah, like when Incredible Hulk came out, like I didn't know Ty Burrell from Modern Family. I knew him from Dawn of the Dead.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
He's in Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who is he in Dawn of the Dead?
He's just one of the random guys in the mall with them. Like he got killed, I think, on the bus thing that they had.
That's great.
You better know the details, Josh. I know that's right. Fill it in.
So overall, if we had to, or is there any other thoughts you guys had on this movie?
I liked the stunt work, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the undertone is they had a lot of issues getting this movie.
Right.
Not even just the pandemic, just getting this lit, because I've been looking around just to see what some of our contemporaries have been talking about with the cast, and all of them are leading with this headline about the stunt work. And no one's really talking about the script, and I didn't think the script sucked or anything like that.
Right.
But everyone's leaning into stunt work. And
well, I think that's a big push right now too, because I mean, stunt performers definitely deserve their own Oscars category.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And it's been severely lacking. And I mean, like we were talking before about the fight scenes and action scenes being amazing in this, and they were.
But for it to all be that, unless there is in fact the agenda of we're gonna get them Oscars this next year,
right.
It does feel like they're basically implying the script is lacking. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean. For me, like overall, I thought it was a good movie. Like I thought it was a really solid film. It just didn't land for me the way it should have because of when it was released.
Right. It could have been a Disney Plus movie, to be honest.
You know what? Absolutely, it could have been. That would have been a great kickoff to Disney Plus.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It would have been a good Disney Plus movie. But I agree. Like for some reason, the way that it just doesn't fit. I wish it would have come after Civil War.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be like, I'm interested to see what the general audience take on this is.
Oh, they're gonna love it.
Just
everybody watching, I know you heard us like talk about this movie. We're critical of it. I'm sure we're gonna get hate for it.
Right, exactly.
But look, we're just being fair. Like it is what it is. People love Marvel, and I do too. I'm wearing a goddamn Marvel head to toe. My wallet is fucking Marvel. You know what I mean? Like. I love Marvel, but I got to be fair. Like, this is not one of the best Marvel movies out there.
But that doesn't make it bad. Like we said,
doesn't make it bad.
It's a good movie. And it would be a better movie if it was just a totally new character and this is just their story with no connection to the Marvel universe. It's the
timing. The timing is what killed it. Like otherwise, it's a really good film. It just didn't come out when
it's also a good passing of the torch story for the Black Widow to go to Florence. And if that's your end game, if that's what you're doing, then it worked, because I'm really excited to see Florence Pugh in the MCU.
I can't wait for her to go kick some Hawkeye, but
And lastly, on that, it's also getting the short end of the stick. Not only timing of where it comes out in the MC universe, just timing is hitting the theaters. People are tired of being in the house. People are tired of watching things, and I think all movies this summer are going to suffer because people just want to be outside,
right,
doing things, living life. And if this had come out in the middle of the pandemic, say, even if they put it out before WandaVision,
right,
which it was supposed to,
and they did a strong female lead, campaign, they could have dropped it on Disney Plus and it would have went bonkers.
Right.
You think
crazy.
Think about the release though. It was supposed to be Black Widow, knowing everything that we know about the movie, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which would have made more sense
because of
the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And then WandaVision.
Yep.
So it makes sense the way that it would have went down. And I think that, let's talk about this post-credit scene. Because I have a question for you guys.
Major spoilers.
So anybody, because honestly, you could have listened to this whole podcast and not watched the movie and still go and watch the movie and enjoy it, because guess what? Spoiler alert: Scarlett Johansson doesn't die in this movie. You know what I mean? But this is the spoiler part where you are, if you're a hardcore Marvel fan, you don't like spoilers. This is the part where you don't want to listen to it. But go ahead, Josh.
Red alert.
Okay,
Josh, you're gonna put in a sound cue for something like this, right?
This is your notification.
She's doing it for me.
We're gonna do it like this. This is your notification that a spoiler will now be appearing in this show. Please stop your recording right now.
Please put in some siren sound effects.
Yeah. We'll do this for now. In the future,
like the Purge.
I'll get some like air raid sirens, and you can do that. You can do that.
This
for
is
me.
a warning from the Illuminerdi World Order. Please stop now.
That's actually great. That's a good deal.
I love that.
Good
I love
deal.
that.
All right. So do you want me to just explain what the post-credit scene was?
Yes.
Go for it.
Do
it.
So Yelena is at Natasha's gravestone, and what's her name? Contessa
Valentina.
Something.
Josh, you're gonna make me look this up.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, her character that we've already seen now in Falcon and Winter Soldier comes up and talks to, and basically talks to her about joining another team, like almost like, hey, I've got more work for you coming up, and that's kind of about it. I mean that's what we. I mean, there's. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we not, because she hands him the, who's her next target, right? Hawkeye.
Sorry. Yeah.
And it's just like,
You just left out the most important part of that.
Don't you want to get the person responsible for your sister's death?
Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah. And I'm like, yes, I do want to get him. He needs to die. Let's go.
I mean, first, is he really responsible for her death?
She sacrificed herself for him. Okay.
Yes.
This is enough.
He was going to do the same
She
thing.
could have had her
He should
sister.
have gone faster. He should have gotten in there faster.
He's an Avenger. You've got superhuman strength. Why do you snatch her up?
I will never forgive you,
But he
Hawkeye.
doesn't. Like him, Natasha, and actually, it's really just the two of them.
And Tony Stark. I mean, Tony Stark has a suit.
Outside of the suit, none of them have superpowers.
Right, that's true. Which doesn't matter. Okay, listen.
But they had their suits on.
Hawkeye just has good aim.
They were dressed.
Like, that's his power.
Well, he
has
should have
really good
aimed
aim.
harder.
They were
okay?
dressed.
He should have.
Now, if I was trying to pull her up, yeah, her ass is going to fall. If they're Avengers, pull her up. But it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, but no. So she's going to be going after Hawkeye, and that's going to be in the Hawkeye series, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
that's going to be in the Hawkeye
And we had
series.
known this before because she had been hadn't they seen her filming, or they had seen her like flying to the set or something?
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, I
mean,
remember
it's
that it
definitely
had been
there.
out there. We just didn't know the reason why, and
But-
now we do.
I think an interesting thing too is that do you think that we get the rivalry that Clint and Natasha were supposed to have on screen that
Between
plays
them,
out
between them.
but between Florence and Haley now?
Oh, that's
that could be
interesting. I
interesting.
like that. Yeah, I like that.
Because that would be really cool that we get that. But here's another question: is we know that her character Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, she's also recruited John Walker from
U.S. agent.
U.S. agent
That's
from
right.
the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's
So
right.
is she making the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers?
Ooh, I mean that. I like that.
Because look,
yeah.
both
And they're
are
blonde.
yeah, and both aren't part of the Secret Invasion.
Right.
At least the Dark Avengers were.
And eventually,
Put
we
it
have to
together,
be getting
Joe.
Norman Osborn at some point, right?
So yeah, I mean, and we know that Norman Osborn is going to be in Spider-Man, played by Willem Dafoe.
Dafoe.
But what are the chances that Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the Nick Fury role for whatever's coming in Secret Invasion? Because we do get the
Chances
Avengers
are high.
Chances are high, right? We do have a Dark Avengers that is a thing. There's a couple of characters that also could fit the mold of being in this new version of the Dark Avengers that the MCU can introduce.
I have a really super random theory, or not really a theory.
Lean in, everyone.
Well, going for a question. So we know from Spider-Man: Far From Home that Nick Fury was actually a Skrull on Earth, but unlike in Secret Invasion, he knew that the Skrull was impersonating him because he probably sent the Skrull down there to do that,
Right?
Because he was up on the Sword space station or whatever wherever
Well, that was Ben Mendelsohn's character, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Talos?
Talos.
So, do you think it's possible that Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the Contessa, is actually a Skrull?
Ooh.
I mean, that's a great theory too,
Yeah.
because then you're building in an Avengers that has like a Skrull
Right.
agenda.
That makes
Right.
sense.
But then again, what if Secret Invasion isn't even about like the Skrull invasion, like how we think it is? Like, because Marvel
possible.
could do some shit like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
They did that with Civil War.
Because in Captain Marvel, the Skrulls were like nice.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
But that was just that group of Skrulls.
Yeah,
that
'cause they
Nick
said there's
Fury's
a lot of
currently
other
working
Skrulls
with.
out
there.
So if she's one of these evil Skrulls that's working against Nick Fury,
Right.
that would make sense because he built up the Avengers, so
Well,
she's building up.
We do have character descriptions about more Secret Invasion characters, but we do think that there could be a Super Skrull coming, so that could play into that. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what's our next movie, The Eternals?
Yes.
MCU?
Yeah.
I believe so.
So I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see where that plays out. But I have a feeling that probably won't tie in as much to like the Skrull stuff. I think that'll tie into the greater MCU stuff.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is going to do something. That's a big get. That's a big name, a big star,
Yeah.
just to use her minimally. So
Right.
something major will
Yeah.
be coming with her.
I think so too.
I agree with that.
Like I'm telling you, I think
For
she's
sure.
going to be like the new Nick Fury.
So obviously, no, Shang-Chi is the next one.
Oh, Shang-Chi!
really?
Shang-Chi is September
That's
3rd.
right.
Yes.
Eternals is November 5th.
I'm
wow.
hyped. I am
Yeah.
so stoked for Shang-Chi.
So there's four movies this year.
Really? Including
Black
Widow.
Yeah, so Black Widow now, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and then Spider-Man No Way Home is December 17th.
That's crazy. They're
trying
really
to
getting
get
them all out there.
all
And then
your
like
money.
2022 is kind of packed too. Like 2022, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on March 25th. May 6th is Thor: Love and Thunder. July
God.
8th is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and then November 11th is supposed to be when the Marvels is coming out.
Wow.
So this is provided everything actually stays on schedule for when
Right.
it's supposed to come out. But yeah, that's a packed 2 years.
It's a packed
Definitely.
year.
Plus all of the Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a
look,
lot of content.
So, we got to rank this. Let's rank it out of 5, right? I think 5 is a fair number. Josh, we'll start with you. And then, we'll start like a letterbox. This is going to be the Illuminerdi POV. We're going to start our film ranking starting at this one. I mean, this is going to be number 1 because it's the only movie we have.
Maybe it should be, how many hooded figures do you get since we're the Illuminati?
Oh, I like that. Well, that also could go. I don't want that to be a racist thing. We're not, I mean.
What?
The KKK.
Okay, they're not wearing.
Well, no, we have to describe it and draw it properly.
Wait,
not the racist
I mean, we were talking about this before. Like, we can, there's all kinds of names, like acolytes, disciples. How many disciples?
How many cloaked individuals do you give it?
Exactly.
How many cloaked individuals? How many, what do you give this rank?
How many cloaks?
So honestly, I'm like, I know we were complaining about it, but I'm gonna give it out of 5. 5, right? I'm gonna give it a 4.
All right.
I think it was a really, really solid film. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I just wouldn't in my Marvel film ranking, it wouldn't be towards the top.
Right.
But it was a good movie.
Tatiana?
I mean, I'm going to go with that too. Like, if I can, maybe, trim one of the cloaks and make it a 3.5.
You can do that.
Yeah. Then that was probably
3.5?
Yeah, I think it was a strong
We can
film.
do quarters.
Yeah, quarters. I just wasn't, as emotionally engaged as I would have liked to be. But I did enjoy it.
Oh, okay. We can cut the cloaks. I was going to say a cloak and a sickle. I'm going to give it 3 cloaks. Because I did doze off during some of the long stretches of conversation. But I did enjoy it. I didn't hate it. But, I'll give it a solid 3. Well, 3.5 cloaks.
I'm going to go 3
with you.
3.75.
Wow.
3.75.
And a sickle.
The reason why I think that the actions there, I think I love the character. I mean, I like Black Widow, and I think really I love the Marvel Universe. Florence Pugh is amazing. I think that I can't wait to see more of her in the MCU. David Harbour stole every scene that he was in. Unfortunately, the placing in the movie kind of threw me off. I think that some of the comedy beats didn't land as well, but it's not anything bad. I mean, it's just I've seen worse. You know what I mean?
Right.
For sure.
3.75. I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. I've seen it twice, and both times were fairly enjoyable. It's not like they were a chore to get through them. So 3.75 solid.
I liked it better than Captain Marvel.
Ooh.
I'm with you on that, I think.
I don't know if I need to rewatch Captain Marvel again. I haven't seen it since release, but I know I didn't not like Captain Marvel.
Right. I enjoyed Captain Marvel.
I liked it, but it was just a little too college application for me.
Yeah,
check this box, check
honestly,
this box,
Captain Marvel, I think in the hands of a different director with the same script would have been a better movie.
Right, which is why I'm excited for the Marvels.
Right.
Because we've changed it up a bit.
Yes.
So, as long as Candyman is good, Captain Marvel...
Jay's having some concerns about Candyman.
She's worried.
Candyman has been delayed a long time.
And Tony Todd isn't in this one, is he?
Yes.
He is.
I brought him back for it.
Oh. Well, look, we did
But they won't say why.
We did break some exclusives for this at our previous website, that #show, which we are no longer a part of. But here's some of the stories we broke. Exclusive. Marvel Studios' Black Widow character breakdown revealing the casting is getting underway. Ooh. Now, this is usually these things, we get questioned a lot about our accuracy on stories and things like that. So we decided, we were going to hold ourselves up to the fire here. Charles Murphy wrote the article. Recently, we broke the news that Marvel Studios has made the decision to slot their solo Black Widow film into May 6, 2020, which was true.
It was
previously,
at the time.
Previously belonging to the now delayed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Which has now been way delayed.
Right.
We've been told for some time that Black Widow was set to be the next for the studio, and recently passed along that the studio was ready to move into production early next year and was looking to overseas locations such as Croatia for the spy flick. While they're still while they still haven't quite locked down the film location just yet, they've moved on to the preliminary stages of casting the film. And here are some of the breakdowns. We have the Male Antagonist, which is a villain, is simply described as exciting in studios, open to ethnicity, but looking for somebody in their 40s. That's interesting, though. Mainly because we didn't know at the time who the character was.
Right.
And even then, it doesn't kind of fit that description, but it did change along the way. And we'll get to those a little bit later. Let's see. Who else do we have? A secondary antagonist. While this is going to be somebody in their 50s to play a smaller villainous role, the character was briefly described as a conniving female villain, leading us to wonder if she's possibly a relic of KGB's Red Room. It's interesting because the Red Room stuff, it feels like, at least in earlier iterations, it was really there. this guy, it's called, this feature will also feature a minor role described as a bookish American in his 20s. Which I don't think we got. A bookish American in his 20s.
No.
So,
there are no young men in that movie.
I think that was Mason, but he wasn't bookish.
It was Mason. That was the character. But and it's funny because we're going to track these and you're going to see how these evolve over time. So these were the initial character breakdowns that came out about that. Let's go to our next story, which was, by the way, in terms of accuracy, I mean, that was a character breakdown, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things with a lot of these too is there's, at least online, it seems like a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with how the back end of movies work and the story development process, and that just because at the beginning of the cycle when they're making the movie, there's all these characters that are listed for their story beats, that doesn't mean that they're not going to change later. So something that could be right today might not be right 3 months from now when they go into production, because they have the screenwriter there rewriting things as they're happening, because they're like, wait a second, this doesn't work, we need to change it.
Yeah, so another exclusive we brought to that hashtag show at the time was Marvel Studios meeting with talent for Black Widow supporting roles. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting, because this is where we're really going to be able to find out some of these things. So a month ago, we revealed very hard-to-crack character breakdowns for Marvel Studios' Black Widow solo film. At the time, we indicated that we believed the casting process had begun, and that it wouldn't be too long before we started to hear some rumblings. With the holiday season approaching at the time, I don't know when this article was written. It was December 12th, 2018. Wow, that was a while ago. Hollywood is preparing for a 2-week shutdown recently. Well, let's get to the meat of this. Let me see here. Kick-Ass. All right, so now we have that the female contemporary role. The original report was described the character as being a kick-ass female Bond capable of speaking multiple languages.
Come on, Florence.
Obviously, some of the roles. Let's see. I actually don't think this is anything with casting. This is more, again, with talent meeting actors for the role. But you're right, Jay. This was for Florence's role. And we'll get to our next one right now, which was exclusive Black Widow searching for ethnically diverse male villain, which
that did not happen.
Did not happen. Let's dive into this a little bit.
They put it all in the widows.
Right.
All right. So
unless that was supposed to be Dreykov.
I mean, technically, he is ethnically diverse because Russia is a different.
That's true. Last month, it was reported that the script for Marvel Studios' Black Widow was being rewritten at the time, because there was a previous director ahead of this by Ned Benson. The rewrite almost certainly responsible for the delay of production, which saw the film's start date get pushed all the way back to June. Should things stay on schedule, principal photography will conclude in October, freeing the stage space in London for Marvel Studios' next film, The Eternals, to move on. While the magnitude of Benson's rewrites are unclear, it does seem that he's done a bit of character work, reworking some of the film's lead and possibly removing others. In November last year, we gave you, which we talked about, those 6 initial characters. Let's see. Actually, all right, so the original report was somebody exciting in their 40s, male antagonist. Rewrites have given us a little bit more clarity on the character, though, to be honest, we still don't have much to go on of any efforts to figure out just who he is. The studio is now looking for either a Black British or African-American 30 to 45 to portray a tough, dangerous, and mysterious villain. The news updating certainly seems to be eliminating the Red Guardian, which actually did appear in the movie, and any other Russian versions of contention, as they are likely not to have British accents. It certainly leaves someone like the Taskmaster in play, but at this point, it really could be anybody. So the film also features a second female lead, as we first reported in November, an older European male and a female and a bookish male. The studio was seeking Paul Dano type.
Interesting. Paul Dano type. Wow.
As we originally reported back in December. With cameras rolling. Yeah, so that was that bit of information we had.
I mean, Paul Dano is bookish.
He is bookish.
So,
yeah.
Let's see. We also had exclusive Emma Watson headlines list of frontrunners for female lead in Black Widow. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So, Marvel Studios now actively casting for a solo Black Widow film. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Headlining its list of actors, Emma Watson, best known for her role as Hermione. In Harry Potter's franchise. Watson is starred as Belle's Disney live action 2017.
And she has red hair.
Yes, she does. Actresses Alice Englert from Beautiful Creatures in upcoming Netflix series Ratched. Dar Zuzowski. I'm probably butchering his name.
Right.
Hostages in Neighborhood, and recently auditioned for the role and made a strong impression for the studio. Additionally, Florence Pugh, who will star alongside Emma Watson in Little Women, is also in the running, while the role originally called for an actress in their 30s to 39. So that's interesting that we now know that Florence Pugh won out on this role, and she's a lot younger than some of the other her contemporaries that were up for the role. So that was, we'll score that as a win, right?
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh, she was in there.
I mean, other than the other character breakdown stuff, we hashtag show it with monitors, or we monitored it at the time as being, it's character stuff. Flux.
I mean, and like I said before, like a lot of these, like with characters and with casting, the information is always going to be relatively in flux until they say this is confirmed and we've gone ahead and cast this person.
Yeah.
So with
script rewrites, it's funny talking about script rewrites. Make me nervous.
With the rewrites of Ned Benson, casting director Sarah Finn has expanded abroad of candidates originally targeting 40s actors in their 40s. Studios opened up the range a bit. This is also for another role. This is exclusive. Moonlight's Andre Holland in the mix for Black Widow villain.
Interesting.
Auditions villain take place recently this weekend with Andre Holland that read for the role. Well, we do know he read for a role. We just don't know what role that was. So there is that. Let's see. And there's one more.
What role would that have been? I guess OT?
I'm guessing OT's role.
OT's role
would have probably been it. And then Ned Benson rewrites and introduces a new character into Black Widow. Let's see. This was our last story. So we ran 6 stories about Black Widow. And most of them were character stuff. The only casting thing that we really had was that Emma Watson was in the lead role with a few other actors, and Florence Pugh ended up winning out.
Yes.
Which we did report on, that Florence Pugh was also in that running. We previously reported Emily Andre Holland. Let's see. So the interesting part about this one is that they were looking for actresses, compiling a list of anywhere between 15 to 25 to audition. Process, a handful of names. Now, here's some of the names that we came across: was Storm Reed, Isabel Moner, Camille Mendez, and Hannah Quinn-Lavin.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So this role is small in nature. The studio is pursuing these young actress to have a role in this film.
Maybe that would have been
Storm.
You know what?
Too young, I think.
Yeah.
At that time.
Right.
Yeah.
She's
So I'm
barely
not
20.
Maybe they
No,
were
she's about
be,
to go to college.
But maybe there were going to be scenes with like young Black Widows, right?
Oh,
like that kind of
yeah.
You know, and then they because they really kind of took out, or there wasn't really an element of connecting one-on-one with anyone else other than Florence, who already was not there.
Right.
So
right.
That's true. Well, that role, at least in the film, unless it's one of the kids that they cast as, young Scarlet and young, young Florence. But other than that, that role probably didn't come out. But in terms of the casting stuff, I mean, we definitely had the Emma Watson thing, and we had a lot of the character breakdown. So that's all we really had for Black Widow.
Good job.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of news there. But yeah, next time we're going to be back with another episode.
Space Jam, I believe.
Space Jam. I'm excited about Space Jam, starring LeBron James.
Yes.
Don Cheadle.
Yes.
It's going to be really fun. I'm a big Space Jam, the first Space Jam fan. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan, so it'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait till we do Space Jam.
Pull it out the archives if you haven't already.
Right, Space Jam.
But the original website for the original Space Jam is still available on the Space Jam website.
As it should be.
Really?
Yeah, so they updated it for Space Jam 2, but they archived the entire site for the original Space Jam.
That's
and
so
you can
awesome.
click on a link to see it.
That's great.
Like,
Super cool.
In its original format too. Like, it hasn't been updated at all. So it's still like built for like Netscape Navigator version 2 or something.
That's great. I can't wait to dive into something different than superheroes for a change.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say for a change. It's our first episode.
Yeah.
For a change.
But that's going to do it for us here at the Illuminerdi POV. That is point of view. Guys,
I love how he explains it every time.
Hey, man, I don't know.
What
People
POV
might
is.
not know what that means.
It's like POV? What's POV?
Josh.
People on video.
Right? Yeah, that works for that too. Josh, where can people find you on social media?
On social media, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vogon Poetry Slam. I'll put credits or something on the screen. We'll see it.
Yeah.
Well, the audio version isn't going to hear your credits on the screen, so you may want to say the rest.
Description.
Tatiana, where can people find you?
You can find me at Marcella's Ear on Twitter and Instagram. And consolidating of links will be there.
And where else can they find your shows and the stuff that you do?
You can find DC TV Gumption, which is Ladies with Gumption, The Flash Podcast, Everything else will just be on my Twitter.
Jay?
You can follow me on Twitter. I will spell it for you at JeandraLebeauF. So follow me, my government name, on Twitter and on YouTube. Subscribe to Bad Culture TV or find my interviews at Black Girl Nerds and Rolling Out.
You can find me at Joe Illuminerdi on all social media, and you can find me at the Illuminerdi right here and over at Screen Rant doing interviews. And if it's a movie I don't want, you can check out Tatiana over there too.
Yes.
That's gonna do it for us on Illuminerdi POV. We'll be back next week with Space Jam.
Yes.
Space Jam 2. Space Jam 2.
A new legacy.
Starring the King LeBron James.
All new. Hail LeBron.
Bye.